We have another question for the Rav.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the Yetzer HaRah and the Nefesh HaBeHamis, the animal soul, and is there also a difference between the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, and the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul?
So the question is there a difference between the Yetzer HaRah, which is called a negative inclination, and something that's called the Nefesh HaBeHamis, the animal soul, versus also the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, and the Nefesh Elokis, the divine soul. So classically, like in the Gemara, in Chazal, the word for some type of positive quality with man is called the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination. And the negative qualities is called the Yetzer HaRah, the negative inclination. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya uses those words, but mostly the main words that he uses is the word Nefesh HaBeHamis, animal soul, which is not his word, but he uses this consistently. And it seems like there's this distinction between the Nefesh HaBeHamis, the animal soul, versus the Yetzer HaRah, the negative soul, the negative inclination. Yetzer literally means an inclination. So there's a letter by Rabbi Saul Salanter, the great Musar teacher, in Know Your Soul. It's printed in Garrison Musar. And he writes that there are two opinions what the Yetzer HaRah is and what the Yetzer Tov is. What is a good inclination? What's a negative inclination? He says most opinions is that the Yetzer HaRah, the negative inclination, is a koyach hatuma, is a power of impurity that pushes a person to do negative things, to sin. And the Yetzer Tov is a koyach kedusha, a power of the holy, sacred power, holy power that pushes a person to do good. So this is one way. He says most Jewish philosophers understand it this way, that it's a koyach, a tuma, power of impurity or power of purity. And then he says another way of understanding it is that the Yetzer HaRah is the koyach, the power of taiva, of desire, physical desire, that desires things that are sweet in the present, or of l'shaita, things like instantaneous or pleasures of the moment. That's the Yetzer HaRah. And the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, is the seichel hayasher, the clean intelligence, the clear intelligence, that is also sees the possibility of the future. The Rayas HaNayil sees the future, which is really something that the Balakeda writes also, the Bitzagarma, that the difference between, so we have two different opinions over here, how this works. Either it's Yetzer HaRah, let's talk about the Yetzer HaRah, the negative inclination is, either it's a koyach hatuma, negative force, or it's instant gratification. That's what it is. It's like it sees what's instant gratification and its power of the desire. Versus the Yetzer Tov, the positive inclination is koyach kedusha, power or good holy force, and it's connected to seichel, connected to intelligence. So what the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya when he talks about the Nefesh HaBeHamis, the animal soul, the Chiddush, one of the great novelties of what the Alter Rebbe is teaching, versus the concept of the Yetzer HaRah, is that in the classical definition, the Yetzer HaRah, the negative inclination, is either it's an inclination towards Tuma, or even if it's an inclination, but it's an inclination of taiva, of desire, that wants things in the moment, like whatever the desire is. I see some food, I see something I want to write it out, and I want to receive it. The way the Alter Rebbe explains the idea of Nefesh HaBeHamis is that the Nefesh HaBeHamis, the animal soul, has a tzura shlema, has an entire form, which means that not only does it have seichel, midos, emotions or instincts, which is something that the Know Your Soul explains in depth, that not only is it the idea of the instincts to self-gratify in the immediate, but it also has seichel, also has intelligence, which means the Nefesh HaBeHamis is much more evolved, much more comprehensive, if you wish, than just pure animal instincts or instincts of survival, because it also has intelligence, which means it will the Nefesh HaBeHamis will figure out ways intellectually. It has seichel shebimidas, it has intelligence of the emotions, which means it tries to figure out selfish ways how it can self-aggrandize, how it can self-serve itself. And that's the Nefesh HaBeHamis. And it's all about survival of the self. And in that itself, there's the survival of the self, which, like we'll say, is the midah of kavura, self-preservation. And then there's also self-perpetuation, which is the chesed element. It wants to survive and thrive. So, and it will scheme intellectually. So it's not just pure raw emotions and instincts. It will scheme intellectually to figure out what is the best possible way for you to survive and persevere. That's Nefesh HaBeHamis. And in this state, it's not tuma necessarily. It's not negative. It's not negative. It's not a Yetzer HaRah. It's not negative. It's not a koyach hatuma. It's klipas loiga. It's a klipa of an intermediate klipa, which means it can go both directions. You can self-survive for what? Why are you self-surviving? What are you self-perpetuating? You're doing it just to make yourself big, or to make your name big, or for instant gratification. What are you doing it for? Or you're doing it for higher intention. So that's already, it's much more subtle, and therefore it can swing in different directions. That's the Nefesh HaBeHamis. The same goes with the Nefesh Elokis. The Nefesh Elokis, the divine soul, is not just seichel, not just intelligence, not just seichel hayasher, correct intelligence, but it also has midos, it has emotions, it has a full gamut of experiences. But it's counter to the Nefesh HaBeHamis. If the Nefesh HaBeHamis, the essential motive apparatus of the Nefesh HaBeHamis is for self, what I want, the Nefesh Elokis is not just a difference, even a quantitative, but certainly even a qualitative difference between a desire. The Nefesh HaBeHamis desires to eat ice cream, and the Nefesh Elokis desires to daven, to learn. It's different. The Nefesh Elokis, the desire of the Nefesh Elokis is the opposite of the desire of Nefesh HaBeHamis. Not only just one desires one thing, physicality, the other one desires spirituality. One desires to be, and one desires not to be. The Nefesh Elokis, the desire of the Nefesh Elokis is to expire, to self-destruct, if you wish, obviously not in a literal way. So if the desire of the Nefesh HaBeHamis is to self-survive and to perpetuate, the desire of the Nefesh Elokis, of the divine soul, is to completely expire itself from something that's greater. It's like the Ner Hashem Nishasadim, the soul of man leaps upwards, which means it's not just I want to daven. Instead of eating ice cream now, or going to the game, I want to have a bigger geschmack, a bigger desire, so I want to learn. That's exchanging one desire for the other. That's not what the Nefesh Elokis wants. The Nefesh Elokis wants to become absolved, to self-destruct itself. I know it's a negative word, and become one with Hashem. And man di'uzeh yurav. And the moment it loses itself, it becomes everything. Because when it's itself, it's just itself. So bittul, the idea of bittul, of self-nullification, is not bittul that you break yourself and you end up feeling like a doormat. It's the opposite. You exchange the self-preservation of self for your ego purposes to the desire to expire in something that's infinite, and in turn you actually become infinite. You become part of the infinite. So man di'uzeh yurav. The smaller you become, the greater you become. And this is a qualitative difference of the Nefesh Elokis. Nefesh Elokis is not just a seichel hayasher, good intelligence, but it's a complete different quality of existence. And in the earlier Rishonim, this is a very big conversation. Exactly what the chiddush of what's the novelty of the understanding of the Nefesh Elokis, of the divine soul, in the language of the HaRah, that it's a chelik gekal mimal, that's literally a part of the divine, part of the divine self, what that literally means. How could you be a part of something of infinite? But this is the structure. But one of the main chidushim, one of the great novelties of what HaRah was teaching, and this is a fundamental of Chassidus and the whole teachings of Baal Shem. This phrase that a person exists goes back hundreds of years before the Baal Shem, before the Alter Rebbe. And Shafatal and other Mekubalim write the same language. The early Rishonim don't write that. Many of the early Rishonim write that Seichel is the highest level, which is like the Yetzer Tov, Seichel, which is the intelligence, which is like the way the Rambam writes. And the Ramban writes it's even more, and Kreskis writes in Or Hashem that it's considered Oyer Matnas from Elikim. It's like a gift from Hashem, a type of light, type of illumination, type of enlightenment. And the chiddush of the novelty of the Mekubalim is saying that's a chelik halakha. It's a part of the divine self, the part of the divine oneness. That we come from that place, from the oneness of Hashem, literal oneness of Hashem. And the main chiddush, what the Alter Rebbe was saying, and this is a chiddush, this is a novelty of Ultra Chassidus really, is that if the early Mekubalim were saying that there's a chelik al mimal, there's such a concept, they said it only exists by tzaddikim. That a tzaddik, a highly evolved self, someone that's on a very spiritual madrega, so on a very high spiritual level, has a chelik halakha. And what Chassidus says is that every person, is a child of Hashem, and a chelik kalim is from the highest level of a Talmud Chacham till a Kal Shel Kalim, till a very simple person, and that's a chiddush, and that's a novelty. The Alter Rebbe gives language to what the Baal Shem Tov said, but he gives it in the Alter Rebbe's way of doing it, explaining the Torah of the Baal Shem in a very logical way, and saying that that's because B'nai Hashem Lekechem is everybody. We're all children of Hashem, and therefore we have. Therefore we have HaBeHamis. So this is a very fundamental difference. When we talk about the difference between the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, versus the concept of a Nefesh Elikis, is very different. It's not just an inclination towards good, a koyach of kedusha or seichel of intelligence, but it's a full gamut of a soul that has seichel, it has all the types of things, and it's in its constitution, it wants literally the opposite of what the Nefesh HaBeHamis wants. If the Nefesh HaBeHamis wants self-aggrandizement, wants self-survival and perpetuation of self, the nature of the Nefesh Elikis is to completely self-destruct and become one with the Creator, one with Hashem's light. So this is an important distinction.
Thank you very much.
It could even be in the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the way in which the HaRah would want to approach it.
What do you mean?
I mean, someone could want to eat, but the way the HaRah wants to eat and the way the Yetzer wants to eat.
Sure, Avada.
They're both trying to get you in a specific way, diabolically opposed.
Correct.
So it's not about necessarily even doing different things, but it's how you do the things.
Absolutely, it's not about doing anything. It's a good word you're saying.
Yeah.
In other words, you think that the Yetzer Tov wants only good things, Yetzer Hara wants negative things.
Yeah.
When you say Nefesh HaBeHamis, Nefesh Elikis, it's not good or bad.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. It's Shiloh's what is it doing it for?
Yeah.
I'm eating because I want to be healthy. I don't know. I want to be strong. Well, why do you want to be strong? Oh, I want to be strong because I can serve Hashem. I want to be strong because I can connect. Oh, so then you're doing the same thing, but with a different kavanah. It's Nefesh Elikis or Nefesh HaBeHamis. Correct.